4 a.m. in the woods. Many of us are struggling right when we wake up. We open our eyes, we scroll on our phones. The enemy uses that every single morning to start our day. We're taking it back and we're spending our 4 a.m.s in the Bible, in the Word, with our God, our first fruits, so He can pour into us, love us, peace and joy, and His wisdom, which is more valuable than anything. This is a chapter by chapter series, and let's get into it. Last chapter in 2 Samuel 10, we heard of some great examples of bad leadership that started with some misinterpretation, fear, and suspicion, and we see David's reaction to this bad leadership into the major disrespect that happened. A war was had. Now we are led to chapter 11. In the spring, when kings march out to war, David sent Joab with his officers and all Israel. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. The Bible is mentioning this time when kings march out to war. It is a duty. It's also mentioning how David remained in Jerusalem. David did not do his duty. He rested and stayed at home. Seems a little idle. One evening, David got up from his bed, strolled around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing, a very beautiful woman. So David sent someone to inquire about her. And isn't this Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam and wife of Uriah the Hittite? Some translations say from the roof he saw and beheld. He saw and he looked. He was definitely paying attention to this woman. He inquired about her. So not only did the thoughts come in, he was trying to form some movements around it. David sent messengers to get her. And when she came to him, he slept with her. She had just been purifying herself from her uncleanliness, or her menstruation period. Afterward, she returned home. The woman conceived and sent word to inform David, "I am pregnant." When I read "I'm pregnant," I heard like the Maury audience going, "Ooh." I don't watch that show, but I do remember it being on when I was a kid. I'm glad they mentioned that Bathsheba was taking a bath from her uncleanliness, or her period, because it shows that she is obeying God's commands from the Mosaic law about you have to cleanse yourself after your cycle. Also means that she was very highly fertile. And I would imagine it being very hard to deny the king because of power, not because of lust. But the Bible doesn't go into specifics on that. David seems to have a lot of wives, a lot of women around him, concubines, and so there already seems to be somewhat of a lust problem there. David sent orders to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite," so Bathsheba's husband. So Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah came to David, David asked how Joab and the troops were doing and how the war was going. Then he said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king followed him. But Uriah slept at the door of the palace with all of his masters. He did not go down to his house. When it was reported to David, Uriah didn't go home. David questioned Uriah, "Haven't you just come from a journey? Why didn't you go home?" Uriah answered David, "The ark, Israel and Judah are dwelling in tents, and my master Joab and his soldiers are camping in an open field." In other words, my friends are still at duty over there in open fields, ready to fight because it's wartime. How can I enter my house and eat and drink and sleep with my wife? As surely as you live and by your life, I will not do this. Uriah is a very loyal soldier. He was pulled from where they were at to come and talk to David and inquire about how the troops were doing. David's buttering him up, and Uriah is not wanting to go home and be comfortable because his fellow soldiers are not doing that. David tries again. So he says, "Stay here today also," David said to Uriah, "and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next. Then David invited Uriah to eat and drink with him, and David got him drunk. He went out in the evening to lie down on his cot with his master's servants, but he did not go home. David's plan to cover up this pregnancy was not going well. So when that didn't work, David sets up Uriah's death. He tells Joab to put him somewhere where he can basically be killed. Joab does that. Joab sends a messenger to tell David, and then This is what Joab said. Joab sent someone to report to David all the details of the battle. He commanded the messenger, when you finish telling the king all the details of the battle, if the king's anger gets stirred up, he asks you, why did you get so close to the city to fight? Sounds like Joab has experienced some of the king's anger before. The reporter told David what had happened and about Uriah being dead. And this entire chapter concludes with a very important sentence. It says, however, the Lord considered what David had done to be evil. In some translations it said that he displeased God. I love how the Bible is so honest about people, about the heroes in the Bible. I love that it gives us the good and the bad, because we need to see that, because that is our human nature. One sin becoming more sin, and before we know it, sin is taking up our whole life, and our whole life is a compromise. Sin offends a holy God. It displeases God, and it's not worth it. The enemy uses idleness as a great time to lure David and to tempt him. So we have to pay attention to that. When we're idle, what happens? What's going on? And this is not a diss to rest. Rest is good. Idleness is when you're doing nothing. You're just twiddling your thumbs, kind of hanging out, but not doing anything with purpose. Even rest should have purpose. I find some symbolism in the fact that David saw her from the top of a hill. Jerusalem is all hills, and so he can look down, because he's the king, he's probably at the very top of the hill, and he can see everything in front of him. Everything is in front of him. He has a lot of power and authority, and I can see that being a trip up for somebody. This chapter just makes me thankful for Jesus, because I am just like David. I stumble, I fall, I sin, and without Jesus I would never ever make it to heaven, and I would never make it to eternity with our Father who created us. We're gonna find out what happens after this. Are there consequences? What types of consequences? And I'll see you all at the next 4 a.m. when we cover chapter 12.